Oh, sure. Why not?
Now, are you doing anything with this
I've been in like school all summer, and last year I get jobs and like all that, so I was like, once I'm off, it's really nice. And then
That's how I feel too. I need that break. You know, like we do so much during the year, like it's time to reset.
Make it no problem. I'm gonna do before he comes out and wants stuff behind him. What is she doing? I know, me too.
But I'm trying to still very different. I tell you, we got rock and roll. Other than that, if you run the red line all the time, eventually that's well, he's very fortunate to have you. Yeah. You know, why do you gotta do that? And if I had gone to the state league this time, really right here. Yeah. run very, very well. So now it's just kind of make sure you're touching all the nuances and do that one thing. It's not funny how crowded it is. This big circle.
I didn't think, but Thank you. Good morning. Great to see everybody. Great to be back in Southwest Florida. Great to be here in Cape Coral. I want to thank the Cape Coral Police Department and Chief Anthony Sizemore for hosting us here this morning. I also want to recognize a lot of folks we have with us for today's announcement. We have the Executive Director of the Florida Housing Finance Corporation, Trey Price. We have Cape Coral's own Department of DEO Secretary, Dane Eagle, is with us here. We have Lee County Sheriff Carmine Marcino is here. We have from the Cape Coral Police Department, Ashton Wolf is going to be speaking about our announcement. Then we also have a second grade teacher locally, Melba Lugo, who's also going to be speaking about today's announcement. If you look at what's going on in the state of Florida, I just announced on Friday, we've never had a bigger budget surplus, not even close in the history of the state than we have now. And we see kind of like every month, like they say how much revenue is going to come in, and it's been more and more consistently. I think last month it was like $800 million over the estimate of coming in. And so we imagine May, I think we're on track to do well in May and June as well. And that's kind of a testament that the state has been open. We've got a good environment. We have make sure we prioritize things like education, public safety, all these different things. But I thought you go back a couple years ago, people were saying, Florida was going to have the most difficulty because we have a tourism-based economy. We had a lot of challenges with the onset of COVID. But in reality, we've been able to outpace the nation on almost every indicator. If you look, our unemployment rate's 3%. The nation as a whole is 3.6%. In April, we actually expanded our workforce participation by 30,000. The U.S. as a whole participation declined by 360,000. If you look at what we've been able to do in terms of adding another 55,000 private sector jobs in April, when the rest of the country didn't add at that rate, our GDP has grown faster than the nation as a whole. So we've been able to lead, and I think that's allowed us to have a very good fiscal situation. Now, most of what we're dealing with is a lot of what Washington has done in terms of what they're doing with the economy. When you print trillions and trillions of dollars, you end up sparking a really significant inflation. And so that's what we're seeing. I think the energy has been really, really difficult. First of all, there's going to be a lot of problems with diesel and a lot of other things coming down the pike. I mean, we're not even close, I think, to the peak of the problems. But you think about just over the last 2 weeks, how much has gas gone up? It's gone up a lot. I mean, we were probably in April, I think we were probably, you could get it for probably like $4.15. Now it's I see between $4.50 and $5, everywhere I go. And Florida is usually average or even less than the nation. There's other places that are paying $5.50 and $6 and even more per gallon. And so that has a huge impact on individuals that have to commute in terms of their family budgets. It also affects the economy overall because energy permeates almost everything we deal with. And so that is causing more upward pressure in terms of the inflation. You also look when Biden came in, you've seen spiking in a lot of things, including rent. It's much more expensive, and that's nationwide. We have a lot of demand in Florida, and so people are building as fast as they can. We're going to talk about some of that today in terms of the housing. But you've seen a huge spike in a lot of things that really matter to people really over the last year and a half. And it's unfortunate. He was warned that if you did this, that this would be the result. But now they're going to be raising interest rates probably, and they're going to try to slow the economy down to try to get a handle on inflation. And that obviously could have really negative impacts as well. So what we're doing is we're getting it right in Florida. We're making sure that we are being good stewards. If there is some type of Biden-induced recession, from a budget perspective in Florida, we won't have to really change anything. At worst, I just take some of the rainy day fund and move it in, and we'll continue with public safety, education, environment, all that other stuff. So we've been very prudent. We've planned properly, and I think it's that. Now, particularly here like Cape Coral, other parts of Southwest Florida, I mean, like the whole country wants to be here. And so, and just to be clear, like, you know, some governors are out just begging people to move to their state. Like, I'm not doing that. I mean, I'm happy with who we have here. You know, I'm happy with what we have, but I think the reality was you're looking at living in some of these other parts of the country, you know, where they had lockdown policies infinitum. They were denying kids the ability to be in school in person. Those that did allow the schools to be in person, yeah, it's yes, there we go. And then those that did, you know, they wanted to force these kids to be in mass for 8 hours a day. You have places that wanted to fire people from their jobs if they didn't get a COVID vax. Obviously, you have very bad tax and economic policies in a lot of these parts of the country. You had crime not only going through the roof, but really being facilitated by a lot of these idiot politicians. You have places where they literally will not prosecute you. In like San Francisco, you can steal $999 worth of stuff and they won't prosecute you unless it's $1,000. And so people loot the stores. You see all the homeless, all the crime. You see bail policies where they'll put people right back on the street, very soft on crime. And so that creates a huge problem because people don't feel safe in their own communities. And so there's been a lot of reasons why people are like, you know what? Florida's the beachhead and they want to come. And so if you're somebody that's owned a home for a long time in Florida, it's a lot more valuable today, you know, than it was a few years ago because there's a demand and people want to do it. So I know people have done well with selling. The problem is you sell. Where do you go? I mean, you still have to do. So that's why a lot of people don't do it. So there's a lot of demand. And I think in terms of housing in particular, you know, some of it's the inflation, some of it's Biden. If you look at how much it costs to build homes now, look at each individual input and compare it to 2 years ago. Some of these things have gone up 100% in terms of the materials. And so that's going to have an impact. I mean, you know, there's different parts of the state you would look at and they'd have like a sign for a new community somewhere and it'd be like starting at $249.99. Well, then that's an X on that, and now it's like $319 or something, and that's mostly, some of it's demand, but a lot of that is the cost of everything. So it creates challenges. So we want to make sure that, particularly if you look at what we've done since I've been governor, we have worked harder than anybody to support the people in our communities that support us. And so that means the people that wear the uniform, our police officers, our firefighters. This 2021-22 budget, our current year, you had other places that were taking funding away from law enforcement. We did $1,000 bonuses for every sworn law enforcement and fire in the state of Florida. We also have done a lot to support education in Florida, including, I mean, you know, we've done education choice, we've done civics, we've done vocational and technical education, we've done early literacy, a whole bunch of really good stuff. But one of the things we've done is we've done more to increase teacher pay than any governor has ever done in Florida. We've done over $2 billion in increases just in the last 2.5 years. And so that's important to be able to attract good people into the profession. And so if you look at, and then what we did during COVID to support our frontline healthcare workers, you know, we did as much as anybody. And then when some of the nurses were being threatened with losing their job over mandates, we called a special session of the legislature to protect the jobs because people should not have to choose between getting a COVID jab and putting food on the table. So we made sure in Florida we were doing that. And we saved a lot of jobs with law enforcement too. I mean, you know, they may not have done those mandates here in Lee County, but there's other places in Florida where they may have done it. They tried to do firefighters in places like Gainesville and Orange County, and we were able to save those jobs. And so we're very, very happy about that. But if you look at The communities are growing, that's great, but you need to have these folks as important parts of the community. You got to have people who are willing to wear the uniform for police, fire. You got to have good teachers. You got to have good nurses. All these things are just vital. And so what we're going to do today is really make a good announcement, because, the thing is if they want to recruit a police officer to work, say, for Cape Coral Police Department, it really matters if they can afford to have a home here and live in the community and shop in the same stores and go to groceries and see everybody, than if you have to commute from like far away just because you're 45 minutes away maybe is where you can find a home that's affordable for you. So we want to make sure that those frontline workers, people we consider to be hometown heroes, are able to not only work and serve the community, but do so where they're able to afford things like buying their first home. And so what we're going to be doing today is announcing that we are launching a Hometown Heroes initiative in the state of Florida to help these folks achieve home ownership. This is a $100 million program that will provide down payment and closing cost assistance to more than 50 different professions when buying their first home. So that will include all sworn law enforcement officers in the state of Florida, all paramedics, all firefighters, all EMTs, all 911 operators, our correctional operators, probation, juvenile detention officers, our teachers, our child care operators and daycare instructors, and of course, our registered nurses and other home health aides and healthcare practitioners. And so if you're somebody that is here serving our community in those vital roles, you now have the ability through our Hometown Heroes program to get assistance to be able to purchase that first home. Now, to honor those who've served and sacrificed for our country, the following will qualify for this program, whether they're first-time home buyers or not. All military veterans, all active duty service members who are moving to the state of Florida, and all surviving spouses of deceased veterans. And so if you need assistance, you will be there as well. And if you think about what we're doing in terms of helping with affordability, this is part of it. The bonuses are a big part of it. The salary increases are a big part of it for teachers. We didn't need to do it for Lee County per se, but we have a lot of rural counties, and so in this year's budget, we did a huge amount of money to increase salary for these rural deputies because it's harder to recruit, and so we're doing that. We've also done our retention and recruitment program in Florida, where if they have an opening, how many openings do you have, and do you have openings right now?
We got a waiting list, Governor.
Oh, you got a waiting list?
Waiting list.
Okay. Do you guys have openings?
We are getting more people. We're growing.
So you're fine.
We're doing
Okay.
well.
Yeah. Some people, so they have a waiting list. That used to be for pretty much any sheriff's department. It'd be very difficult to get these jobs. And over the years, you had more and more that had availability and didn't necessarily have all the flood of applications. But I think what we've done is really help change the narrative in Florida, because we've supported the people wearing the uniform. But what we've said in the bill I signed a couple months ago, if you're working in these other places that are treating these people horribly who wear the uniform, they get no support, very low morale. And if you leave from like Seattle and you come to Cape Coral or to Lee County Sheriff, you get a $5,000 signing bonus right at the top. And so that's going to really send a signal that this is the place to be for safe communities. And I think you've seen a big uptick in interest. I think people want to be here. Part of it, it's a great place to live and everything, but they do know they're going to get the support. And I think if you look about how they were treated over the last many years, but particularly summer of 2020, they're out there. I mean, first of all, you have all these protests against the police. They're saying to defund the police. But that was when people were yelling at you if you wanted to leave your house back then. And then all these public health people were like, no. You're not allowed to go to the beach. You're not allowed to go protest lockdowns, but you can protest the police. That was when you knew all this was such a fraud. I'm sorry, like how these people are. They're partisans. And while we're on that subject, we in Florida, there is no way we will ever support this WHO thing to send our stuff. That's not going to happen. No way. But you saw a lot of these these elites advocate very pernicious policies, and part of the reason people want to move here is because we rejected those policies. But they advocated very pernicious policies, including locking kids out of school. And now even Harvard is doing studies showing Florida, there was no increase in the achievement gap between rich, poor, black, white. The lockdown states that kept the kids out of school, you've seen a big increase in the achievement gap. So that's going to linger for years and years and years. And we know that's one of the reasons we do early literacy and we put so much of a focus in Florida, because if you don't read at grade level by third grade, the chance that you drop out of school goes up dramatically. Well, I think you're going to see chronic academic deficiencies in those lockdowns. I mean, it's hard enough to get this right anyways, even under the best circumstances, but in those situations, they really did a lot of damage. And so those folks really failed the country, but they were actually cheerleading people attacking the police and protesting against the police. And so, I don't see how you can do one, but you can't do any of this other stuff. And so it was all politics. It was all ideology. But when you look at how they were treated and how little support, and you have the media, how bad they would be with police officers trying to gin up opposition to the police. Very significant media outlets like NBC would do this. So it was really bad. And so it's one of the more difficult times, I think, to have been in law enforcement. And then here we were in Florida. We weren't budging on any of this. We were standing strong. We let people know we supported them. We were not going to allow rioting in Florida. We had the National Guard called out the summer of 2020. I had all my state agencies ready to go. And then we've since signed legislation to combat any type of disorder or rioting, to say, what they do in Portland is you can riot and you get arrested, they take your mugshot, and then you go right back on the street, and they do it again and again and again. And so in Florida, we say, we're not playing that game. If you're rioting, you're not getting a slap on the wrist, you're going to jail, and we're going to hold you accountable. We also sign legislation that, and again, it's not going to be an issue in Cape Coral probably, hopefully, in many of our communities, particularly in this part of the state. But you look what's happening around the country, where they were slashing funding for law enforcement to, quote, defund the police. So we signed legislation prohibiting local governments from defunding law enforcement in the state of Florida. And a lot of other states are now doing it. They're doing it. They just said, the governor of Kansas vetoed this, and I think that's going to be a bad position when she's up for re-election. But a lot of other states have done this to make sure that we're protecting our citizens. You have like 3 yahoos on some city council, and they're able to put your life and liberty at risk with these insane policies. We're just not going to allow that to happen in the state of Florida. So I think we've done a lot to make this a great place to be for those who are serving our community's needs, and particularly those who are wearing the uniform. And what we did in the bill with the $5,000 bonus, we talk about recruiting the out-of-state because of the morale, but if you're a young person and you choose to go into law enforcement, you're also eligible for that $5,000 signing bonus. So what we're doing is we're showing and saying that this is a valuable vocation for people to do, and I think that that's important as well. Also, scholarships for people to go to law enforcement training, and a whole bunch of really good stuff. So people know they're going to be good. So they come here, any of our folks that are already here, people come get the $5,000 bonus. Then you're able to apply to be a home buyer. 5% or up to $25,000 of mortgage loan amount you can get support from. This will be the highest and most inclusive income eligibility of any of Florida's housing's down payment assistance programs that we've ever had in this state. And it's a revolving loan program, so it's an investment that has the potential to serve Floridians for years to come. And to make sure that the program is accessible to every eligible home buyer in Florida, there are over 1,000 loan officers receiving training right now as we speak throughout the state. And Floridians, so the money will not be ready until July 1st when the fiscal year starts, but Floridians can begin applying through their lenders on June 1st. So a month in advance, you can apply as soon as those funds are released with the implementation of next year's budget. Then you're going to be able to do that. And so And so of the $100 million that we're doing for Hometown Heroes, we're also going to be approving a total of $363 million in workforce housing in this year's budget. And so that's the most we've done in a long, long time. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be able to benefit from that. So we're going to continue to stand strong for those who support us. I'm really excited about this program. I think it's going to make a difference for Sheriff Marcino's deputies, for the police officers here in Cape Coral and all throughout the state of Florida. So I'm going to thank the legislature for stepping up for this, and I'm excited to be a part of it. So we're going to hear from some folks. So first we'll hear from Executive Director, Florida Housing Finance Corporation, Trey Price.
Thank you, Governor.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Governor, for your steadfast commitment to housing over the last few years throughout your administration, and to the Florida legislature for following suit and appropriating the largest amount of funding to affordable housing in nearly 15 years. It's really amazing. Thank you. As Executive Director of Florida Housing Finance Corporation, I'm excited to be here today celebrating the announcement of the Florida Hometown Heroes Housing Program. Our team at Florida Housing works with local governments, nonprofits, developers, lenders, and realtors throughout the state to create a high-quality housing solution that assists tens of thousands of Floridians each year. As the Governor mentioned, Hometown Heroes is the highest income eligible program we'll be offering, which will allow more hardworking middle-class families to take advantage of these resources. The program will officially open next Wednesday on June 1st, coinciding with the beginning of National Homeownership Month, an occasion that celebrates the value of owning a home for families, communities, and neighborhoods across America. We're extremely grateful to the frontline workers who've remained committed to their communities during these challenging times, many of whom must drive long hours to work because they can't afford to live in the same town that they work so hard to serve and protect. By helping these individuals bridge the financial gap to home ownership, they'll finally be able to achieve the American dream for their families. Thank you to our lender and realtor participants who have taken the time to be here today in support of this exciting announcement. As the Governor mentioned, we have more than 1,000 lenders throughout the state that are ready to begin assisting Floridians when the Hometown Heroes program launches next week. I'd also like to thank our Florida Housing Finance Board member, Ryan Benson, who is here. Ryan? Hey, Ryan. He's actually from Southwest Florida as well, and represents this area, as well as Secretary Eagle, who we'll hear from in just a few minutes. Now I'd like to turn the microphone over to Officer Wolf, a veteran and police officer with the Cape Coral Police Department. He's going to share more about his home buying experience and the assistance that he's receiving through Florida Housing. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Officer Ashton Wolf. I've been with the police department and also in the military serving my community roughly the past 4.5 years. I joined the military when I was 18. I was stationed in Washington State as an infantryman from 2016 to 2019. With that, I was a Tomahawk in the 1st Battalion, 23rd Infantry Regiment, 3rd Platoon, Black Hawk Company at Joint Base Lewis McChord. While inside the military, I traveled to a variety of locations, including our own border in Arizona, along with Thailand, South Korea, the Philippines, and India. I trained and also was trained by the respective nations' militaries. During the 3 years I was in Washington, I saw it go downhill quite a bit. Started off as a pretty great place to be at. Loved the summers, loved camping and everything like that. Over time, it's slowly, dwindled to what it is now. It's always been in the plan to be a cop, be in law enforcement. However, that kind of pushed me to join, law enforcement a little bit sooner than what I anticipated. When I got out of the military in 2019, I returned to what's my hometown, Cape Coral. I applied to the police department. Luckily, early 2021, I was able to get picked up and had the opportunity to start working for CCPD. They paid for me to go through the academy. They sponsored my way through, paid me while I was going through. And since roughly Thanksgiving of last year, I've been on my own, protecting the community that I grew up in. So I started recently looking for, buying a house in possibly the worst time recently. First-time home buyer, so not only was there the nerves from that, it was also to where I didn't really have time to really think, is this the right one for me, is it not? With the help of my realtor and my loan officer, there was a whole plethora of knowledge that I didn't even know about or was aware about that they were able to help me with and guide me along the process. The program Salute Our Soldiers, and which is going to become a part of the Hometown Heroes program, they allowed me the opportunity to buy a house at the age of 23. I'm the only person I know at the age of 23 that's buying a home, so it's done great things for me. For me, you know, it's not necessarily about the paycheck or how much I make. It's about trying to do right by the community and in the country that I'm a part of. Thank you, guys. Now for Mrs. Lugo.
Thank you all. Let me just breathe in. Just have to make sure that I see all of you like my second graders. My name is Melba Lugo. I've been a teacher for 25 years now, 13 years for Charter School USA, and now I'm working for Cape Global Academy here in Cape Coral. In one day, I changed cities, I changed jobs, I changed apartments, and I bought a house. Thank you for this program. So I want to thank Michelle, my lender. I want to thank all these people that have made this possible. Owning a house seemed like such a distant, far away dream for me. And he is 23, I'm 63. So at this age, you're supposed to be paying off your loan, your mortgage. I am just getting a loan. So, but everything is good. Everything is beautiful when you walk in God's timing.
All right, Dane Eagle, DEO Secretary.
Well, it's great to be back home in Cape Coral. Great to see some familiar faces. On Friday, the governor announced some pretty staggering economic data. Florida's unemployment is 3% compared to the nation's at 3.6%. And we continue to lead in economic growth. Please. We announced that over the last month, Florida's job growth doubled the nation's. We continue to grow in workforce while the nation shrinks, and we are the #1 state for migration than any other state in the nation. They're leaving New York, they're leaving California, where their unemployment rates are still over 4%, and they're coming right here to Florida. That's wonderful. But what does that mean for our home prices? That's great for people who own. I lived in Cape Coral. I worked in Cape Coral. I represented Cape Coral for 8 years. A lot of my friends are in the service industry, or they're our first responders, our nurses, our teachers, or returning veterans, and they're having a hard time buying. So while it's a blessing to have a rising home price while you live there, it could be a curse if you haven't bought yet. So the program that the governor's announcing today is wonderful. It's going to do wonders for our working class citizens. And beyond that, while the governor's been focused on our freedom first choices that make sure that people are leaving other states in droves, as he said, he's not crying out saying come to Florida. They're coming, and it's thanks to his policies in making sure that we are the #1 state in the nation. But beyond that, while his policies are making sure that Florida is leading in economic growth, we are also making sure that like we said, our working class citizens are not left behind. We're focused on affordable housing through our programs at Florida Housing and Finance with Trey Price. At DEO, we have the Homeowners Assistance Fund, and we have disaster recovery to make sure that homes are rebuilt after storms. And you know what? When the federal government stiffed Fort Myers after tornadoes, the governor stepped in and helped raise the money personally to make sure that homes are rebuilt. And when we're not focused on affordable housing, we're focused on the workforce to make sure that they can attain the needs that we have. And the governor's Job Growth Grant Fund, he's touring the state, making sure that we're investing in workforce to make sure that Florida is #1 in workforce by 2030, one of his first executive orders when he stepped into government. So we're going to continue to make sure that we're helping out. And by the way, I know the chief, the sheriff, and the chief are excited about our first responder bonus payments, which we'll be unleashing soon. Again, a top priority of our governor. So under Governor DeSantis, we're going to continue to thrive, and our workforce will not be left behind. Yep. Thank you.
And yeah, we're going to be doing, so we did the $1,000 bonuses for every police officer, fire, EMT in the state of Florida 2021. We did it 2 years in a row. So it's in this year's, next year's budget starting July 1st. Same thing that's going to have this money. So every single police officer, sheriff's deputy, We had, in 2021, we set a record in the state for domestic tourism. And a lot of people thought that tourism would really suffer, because of COVID. And I think that 2020, obviously there was a disruption, but we ended up getting our feet together, and we ended up doing well in the fall and in the winter. But then the 2021, we actually had the highest market share of foreign visitors for our state than compared to the rest of the country. So we typically would get 20% of foreign visitors would come to Florida. 2021, or most recently, we got over 44% of foreign visitors are coming to Florida. New York is number 2. They were in the 20s. New York used to always be number 1, and we would usually be second or third or fourth. But now we're number 1 with a bullet. And I think the reason is because if you go someplace, you want to spend money to go someplace only to be accosted to produce medical papers at the front door of a restaurant or something? No, people don't want to do that. So they knew Florida was a way to get away from all this other stuff and to be able to be here and do well. And so the hospitality and leisure sector, which was really, I think, the tip of the sphere in terms of what could have happened. And if we had done what a lot of people were saying in these other states, like this thing could have ended up being in like a years-long depression. I mean, they were predicting that our hospitality and leisure would not even return to normal until like 2024. And so not only did we blow that out of the water, we're doing better than we were even in 2019. And some of the industries that are very sensitive to kind of Fauci policies, like restaurants, our restaurants are absolutely booming in Florida. The reservations are up. Everything's up over 2019 and significantly, not just like a percent or two. You talk to some of these folks, some of them are up 40, 50% from where they were even 2019. And so a lot of other places around the country, their industries have not recovered. They're still far below where they were prior to COVID. And so we're doing better. And obviously having things like good policies really makes a difference. And so we're proud of that as well. Now, this Hometown Heroes doesn't necessarily encapsulate those types of workers, but our other programs would be something that they could do. But that's important because people, as good as we're adding jobs, lower unemployment than the nation as a whole, outpacing them, that's great. We still have a lot of unfilled jobs in Florida. And part of it is if you want to recruit people, they got to be able to live and have a good lifestyle. So this is a great thing that we're doing today, and I look forward to continue to work hard implementing this. And then we also got a lot of other great initiatives coming out of this year's budget. Okay, anybody questions? Yes, sir.
Governor, to go along with this, affordable home insurance is a big deal right now. Lawmakers meeting in Tallahassee. Do you think they'll be able to come up with something in 5 days? And can you give us an insight as to
No, I think they will. I mean, look, this homeowners insurance, this has been something that's been a problem in the state for a long time. We did do a bill last year. It had some good stuff in it. It did not have everything that I wanted to see. It was the legislature would only yield so much. And so while there were some positives out of that, I don't think it fixed the underlying problems. And so they need to tackle it. I think that they're going to do a really good job because people realize, we don't want to be in a situation where hundreds of thousands of people are losing their policies and getting dumped on citizens. There's going to be some stuff in there that is going to be, I think, very positive for individual homeowners. For example, there was a program that had not been funded, I think, in the last 10 years called My Florida Home, which will provide grants for people to make hurricane-related improvements to their house. And then what you can do is you then get a discount on your insurance rates. I think that that's something that will be very good. But they need to also tackle the scamming that goes on in this market. The idea that somehow you have one shingle off the roof and then some lawyer comes in and then they end up doing this. There's a big lawsuit. That is not going to lead to lower rates for people or even stabilizing the market. And so I think that they need to tackle it. I think people understand that they're going to tackle it, and I think that we should have a very positive outcome because people realize you got to get this done. And it is something where if you're looking to buy in to Florida, to be able to have access to affordable insurance is very, very important. And we have more perils in Florida than some other parts of the country, and so we kind of understand that. But if you look at the way this market functions and the huge amount of litigation that it spawns compared to every other state, we obviously have some underlying issues that need to be addressed. So hopefully they'll be able to do it, and we'll be able to get a great product. But I am confident that they will. Yes, ma'am.
Governor DeSantis, have you considered cutting every Florida taxpayer a check with this record surplus so every Floridian can get immediate assistance in what you acknowledged is a really tough time?
Well, we just did a big budget surplus, or excuse me, a big tax cut, the biggest tax cut that we've ever had. So those are going to be implemented as we go. So for example, starting July 1st, you have a full year of no tax on things like diapers and baby clothes. Now, we still have one in diapers, and so that's going to help. It was not my idea. It was the legislator's idea, but I think it's a good idea. My wife's like, why didn't you do this in 2019 when they were all in diapers? But it is what it is. So we do that. So there'll be holidays for fuel. There'll be holidays for back to school. There'll be a lot. There's actually great sales tax, no sales tax for some of the home improvements for windows and things like that. That'll really make a difference as well. So we've got a big package. I think what we're going to do, and we'll be laying out proposals about what we do going forward. Part of the reason I think we're in a good position is you look at what's going on in Washington. I think most people are looking at these as being very, very problematic times for the national economy and where we could be headed. So we're going to have the ability to provide a cushion for the people of Florida in terms of that. So you're not going to see education get cut or infrastructure or our environment, all the great stuff that we've done with our water projects and restoring the Everglades and stopping, all the stuff that the Army Corps has done with Lake Okeechobee, discharging water. We want reservoirs to be able to handle that. So we're going to continue doing that 100%. Now, we are going to look to see, okay, here we are. What are we going to be able to do going forward? You got to have some in reserve, and I want to have record reserves, but what can we do to make meaningful differences for taxpayers? And so we were going to be looking at different taxes that we're going to be able to provide relief from. Now, we don't have an income tax, which is great, but that's the easiest thing would be to just cut a rate like that. We'll be looking at things perhaps for homeowners, perhaps some other stuff. So there's going to be a more robust tax package that we're going to be working on. But at the end of the day, I think that we've been very, very prudent. I mean, we've lowered taxes every year since I've been governor, and we have record revenue, even with no income tax, and we have one of the lowest, if not the lowest, per capita tax burdens in the country. So that's really the way you do it.
Property insurance. A lot of lawmakers in the legislature have talked about whether the rates for citizens need to come up in order to be more competitive in the market. Can you tell me, is what the legislature is discussing this week going to result in those on citizens' property insurance seeing rate hikes higher than what they...
I don't think that's what they're going to do. I mean, I think Citizens, obviously, if you have a private insurer that cancels your policy, you could get dumped into Citizens. Citizens, the rate is actuarially, below what an actuarial rate would be. We know that. We understand there's problems with it. It's really meant to be a stopgap. It's not the ultimate solution. But I think what they're going to focus on is stabilizing the overall insurance market, making sure that we don't have massive cancellations, providing protection against, for example, with, we've got some of these insurers like USA, they don't do very much in terms of homeowners in Florida. It's a great, veterans love it. It's a great place. I would love for that to be here. So we want to be able to attract more people to be able to offer this for people. And then if someone raises, then you have the ability, on the other hand, to shop around and have other options like you do in other types of insurance. So I think it's stabilizing the private market. We are going to do, I think they're going to do relief for individual homeowners with the improvements that will generate more favorable rates as well. But I think that's really been the problem. Now, we do have more people on Citizens than we did, 4 or 5 years ago. Now, there used to be like 1.7 million, Now I think that there's 800,000, but we were at 500,000 just a few years ago. So that's not a good trend, but I don't think you can really deal with that until you stabilize the overall market. So that's what we're going to be trying to do, and I think the legislature will be able to get that done. All right, guys, great to see you. We'll be back soon. Yeah. What?
Right there at the end, a lot of people missed it. A lot of people missed it. A liberal reporter tried to trap him, and he handled it just like his training showed him how to. What was that trap? Well, they've decided, because the governor has done such a good job with our finances, that they're going to say, well, Governor, if we have a $20 billion surplus, that's enough to cut a $1,000 check to every single Floridian almost. It's pretty close. It really is. But what did the governor say? Well, we have done things for taxpayers. We have done things for people who need it. Diapers and formula and that kind of thing. And didn't really fall into this trap of just handing people out checks so they can go blow it on big screen TVs and weed. And, well, I probably should be careful what I say out loud here. But, every time, we've had a couple of doozies today as in the chat. DeSantis is gaining weight. Goodbye. He's a father of 3. And he's a governor. And he's busy all day, every single day. I doubt he has much time to get to the gym. And he's in his 40s. Sue him. So what? Don't care. But boy, I tell you what. There is also something that people are missing, and I need to reiterate it, and I'm going to reiterate it. The governor, as great as he is, he doesn't do anything. The legislature in the state of Florida does things. That's what today's whole live was about. Our legislature is back now in special emergency session to deal with predatory capitalists. Predatory capitalists. What are we talking about? The homeowners insurance market. All these roofing scammers. All these roofing scammers. You got to love people that insult people. You got to love people that insult people, and then when they're called out on it, they try to deny it. Because that was the first thing that Trump said about DeSantis. It's the only thing Trump has ever said about DeSantis. Well, when I saw him, I thought he was putting on a little bit too much weight. As if Trump has the ability to talk, that fat ass. So, yeah, sorry. We're just going to go ahead and hide that person. So we're going to get off that topic completely. And here in Florida, not so much, not my real name. The biggest predatory capitalists down here are home improvement. Down in South, taking advantage of all the old people. And they'll say, oh, it'll be free. We'll get your insurance to pay for it. And they'll get these lawyers together and they'll scam. And that sends the rates through the roof. And so now our legislature is going to step in to protect people from predatory capitalists. What does that sound like? What does that sound like? Maybe other places, but that's right. And there was word out that the Supreme Court of the failed United States would be ruling today on Roe v. Wade, and that they're preparing for violence. Another form of social engineering, one way or the other. See, just knocking out Roe v. Wade and allowing the states to vote on it, just the voting on it, just the voting on abortion, that's socialism. Why is it socialism? Because it's real simple. If you don't want an abortion, don't get one. I'm not for it. I hate it. I think it's aberrant. I think it's disgusting. And yes, I do believe if the people get together and they have the people's representatives, and by the way, here's what I was going to remind people of. We have had elections in the state of Florida. We have had elections in the state of Florida. And this is the result of said elections. This is the makeup of the Senate. This is the makeup of the House in Florida. Elections have been had. The people have spoken. This is our Supreme Court. We know what the deal is with the governor. The people of Florida, God's waiting room, they've spoken. And we have the right to speak on topics like this. But make no mistake, guys, it's socialism. It is socialism, stating that this particular thing, because we believe it to be an aberrant thing, a disgusting thing, a horrible thing, we're going to now make it illegal in our state. Because it's just a vile, horrible practice. We're going to make it illegal. That's socialism, kids. That is socialism. When government gets together and gets rid of things, societal things that they find damaging and destructive and horrible, that is socialism. Remember the temperance movement? Way back 100 years ago, there were primarily women, almost all women, in fact, got together and they petitioned the government. They said, men cannot control themselves when it comes to booze. And they are earning a wage and they're blowing it all on booze. And we need to take these people who are making profits off of this and we need to make it illegal. We need to make alcohol illegal because it is a destructive force in society. And everybody got together and said, yep, it's a destructive force. And they banned it. But what then happened? What then happened is the gangs took it over of the time. The underground, the black market took it over. And it became super profitable to run booze from primarily Canada into the northern part of the country. And in the south part, that's what gave rise to Dixie Moonshiners and the Dukes of Hazzard. I mean, that's what this was. All those cars. In fact, NASCAR, if you really want to look at the roots of NASCAR, that came from shine runners, souping up cars to outrun the police. Run and shine. That's where it all started. And eventually the government relented and said, you know what? People are going to do it. People are going to want their booze, and they're going to have their bathtub gin, and they're going to have their moonshine, and they're going to do this. So at this point, trying to make it illegal, it's just a waste of our time. It is a waste of people's resources to try to prosecute it. So they repealed. They didn't just pass a law. See, and this was the thing. They didn't even just pass a law against the production of alcohol. They put an amendment to the Constitution against it. That's how much of a push there was. That's how much of a belief there was in this country that alcohol was this destructive force. They actually passed an amendment to the Constitution. It was the 19th, I believe. And then the 21st Amendment, was it the 21st Amendment that repealed it? You see, this is the thing. And they've warned. They said, if you make abortion illegal, okay, you see, they're just going to pull back Roe v. Wade and then they're going to let the states rule on it. You're going to have a black market problem. And I wonder if the authorities anywhere, whether it's Florida or anywhere else, are preparing for any type of an investigative unit to deal with the black market reality. Now, I think if they had, and this might be a good argument, with the whole alcohol thing, if they had just left it to the states instead of making it a constitutional amendment, if they said, okay, we're going to leave it to the states, they can pass laws to either permit alcohol or they can ban alcohol, like they did with prostitution in Nevada. We'll leave it to the states. There might have been some states that continued to ban it. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, aren't there still dry counties in Alabama and Mississippi? Do I have anybody in my audience that lives out there? There used to be, if I remember right, there are still counties that have passed ordinances in, I think, southern Alabama that they're dry, that you can't possess alcohol. You can't sell it. You can't buy it. Yeah, I thought I was right. Anita, Denise. So, when it comes to vice, when it comes to things that harm people, like what has been going on in Florida with these predatory housing scammers, housing repair scammers. In Florida, it is a very, very unique thing. There are so many people that their only job is mowing lawns, putting up new siding, power washing, pool care, roofing, remodeling, all the kind of things that old folks can't do for themselves anymore. Oh, are there dry counties in New York? I didn't realize that. Wow. It's a very, and it's lucrative. It really is, because there are so many old folks. There are so many old folks, and they just don't want to do it, and a lot of them have money. And you can go out, and if you're an honest and decent contractor, you can make a pretty good living. If you've got the money to put into a decent truck and a trailer, and you know what you're doing, and you do a good job, and you charge a fair amount of money, old people talk. Old people talk. When you can get house painting, Denise, yeah, exactly right. And there's some guys that are jack of all trades. They power wash, and they clean pools, and they clean the siding, and they also can run a lawnmower. And so they kind of got a whole package deal going. When you get 2 dozen clients, you're making good money. Just with a pickup truck and a trailer and an ability to not be so put off by hard work. Because it is, especially this time of year. You get out this time of year and you're cleaning, scrubbing pools and checking filters, and you're checking on roofing and cleaning. And I tell you what, it's hard work. It is very, very hard work. But anyway, so yeah, Florida is in special session. Ladies, my goodness, I wish I had known years ago that you were so interested in survival stuff and specific knowledge about getting ready for what's coming. Because, man, the response over at Patreon has been huge. Absolutely huge. I'm stunned. I really am. I've never seen an increase in viewership over at the Patreon channel like I have in the last 2 or 3 days. So, therefore, ladies, we're going to be doing a second video. A second video talking about what's coming. And there's something out there that's been talked about for a long time that has been missed. Who's heard the story about the whole FEMA camp thing? Oh, when this goes wrong or that's going wrong, they're going to round up people because they're not going to be able to feed themselves and they'll be desperate, and they're going to throw them into FEMA camps. Well, what is a FEMA camp? Isn't it basically just a prison? Just a giant open air prison? But have you ever heard of the guys' FEMA camp and the girls' FEMA camp? No. So it's going to be a giant open-air co-ed prison. So there's a special motivation for ladies to not be in one. Let me say this again. There's a very, very special, important motivation for ladies to not get caught up in the whole FEMA camp sweep. Because, yeah, they're going to separate you from your children, for sure. But then there's going to be, like in all groups like this, you see in men's prisons, they trade cigarettes for things. Trying not to be too graphic here in open YouTube. See, this is just the beginning. It'll be something way worse than being in a psych ward. If you're in a FEMA camp with 1,000 guys and 100 women. It'll be something so much worse. And the idea is, ladies, there's going to be a moment when you need to leave. And guys, I tell you what, I've tried to talk to the guys about this, and they won't accept it. I really have. I've tried to talk to the guys about this. They won't accept it. Like, oh, I'm going to grab my gun. I'm going to defend my house to the death. Ladies, there's some things out there worse than death. And I'm not saying don't have a gun and don't defend yourself, but there is a time to know when to retreat. There's a time to know when it's better to maybe be someplace with a dog and just some cover. You see, look at a place like this. See if I can zoom this in. And some people would look at this and go, oh man, if I was out in the wild and I'd been out sleeping under cover, of my own making for a week or 2 weeks, they'd see a place like this and they go, oh man, that would be great. It's abandoned, nobody's around. See, places like this will be a target. Places like this will be used by brigands and thieves and highwaymen and thugs and gangs and drug addicts. As you see a place like this, turn around and go the other direction. See, a lot of survivalists would say, oh man, you could take advantage of that. That'd be great. Absolutely. In a grid down, without rule of law, shit it's the fan situation, a place like this, stay away from, ladies. See, the ladies are going to have to make a different calculus. If they're not with and I know this sounds super sexist, but if you're not with a large group of guys or a mixed group of some kind, you're going to have to make different calculations. BP Earthwatch covered this. He got to it before I did. Who saw the article? The world wheat supply is down to 6 weeks. 6 weeks. In 6 weeks, the world's reserve grain supply will be gone. This is why we covered last week the video where India banned the export of all wheat. When there were articles not even 2 months prior talking about how fantastic it was for India to be exporting wheat because the money is going, it was so much of a shortage that India could now find new markets, and there were once again predatory capitalists that took over and said, yeah, we're going to make a bunch of money, but there were people in India, because it was so expensive, they couldn't afford it. So the government stepped in, said, I don't care how much you can charge for it. You can't sell it outside this country, and you can only sell it for a certain amount of price. And India is not a socialist place, but that is the very definition of socialism. when you say business, you can't sell to anybody you want to, and you can't charge what you want. You see, when people start seeing empty shelves, it's amazing how quickly they become socialists. It's amazing how quickly they turn around and say, hey, government, you need to do something about this. Hey, government, you need to do something about this. All these shortages. What are you going to do to fix this for me? And that's just the reality. And I brought up this picture because, guys, I need you to be honest. See, this is how guys see themselves in a shit hits the fan, without rule of law, end of the world as we know it situation. You see, they're going to be the guy hiding behind the tree, and the UN troops are going to be marching by, and there's going to be 10 or 15 of them, and they're all going to be marching with automatic weapons. And of course, you're going to have a musket, but you're going to defeat them. You're going to be the one that engages them and takes them out. Even though they outnumber you 10, 15 to 1, and they have radios that work, and they have all the weapons and all the ammunition that they need. But because you go to the range on a weekend with guys, you and 4 of your buddies are going to defeat them. See, ladies, you can't fall for this. You can't fall for this. There are guys out there that the worst thing that's going to happen to them in a FEMA camp is they might have to get into a fist fight. The worst thing that's going to happen to you, in a FEMA camp is way worse. Is way, way worse. So the calculus for you as ladies out there, single or divorced, widow, whatever, even if you're in a relationship, is very, very different. And this is something you have to talk to if you have a guy friend in your life. You know, a regular guy friend, whether it's a boyfriend, a fiance. Say, hey, look, I know you're good with a weapon. I get that. You know, and I know we've got all this stuff prepared. But you are not an army unto yourself. And if we get confronted, what is our retreat plan? Because I'm not getting put in a FEMA camp with you. I'm not going to be one of 100 women in a FEMA camp that's got 1,000 guys. Because that is a level of ugliness. It occurs every single day around the world, by the way. If you think I'm just thinking this up out of my own mind. This happens all over the world in different places where there are large refugee camps. It gets ugly. You know, and I wish, maybe I'll talk to Jen Vets for Truth, Jennifer LaFontaine, about speaking to this. She's female, former military. I'm not real sure if Patriot Nurse is too excited about YouTube much anymore. She's posting about once a month, maybe twice. But I think she could speak to this because she's actually been overseas as well, and as a nurse, and could directly speak to how bad things can get. So, once again, we're going to be, of course, talking about this over at Patreon, and how there's going to be different tactics and techniques, and how you can use psychology to protect yourself. Because, let's just face it, I mean, men can be manipulated. It's just the way it is. My neighbors? No. Sally. Not my neighbors. Not here. Central coast of California, listen to me. I was thinking about Monterey, California earlier, where I was stationed at the language school. Central coast of Florida, where I'm at, no, people have their heads screwed on straight. I mean, we understand the reality of what's coming. So, anyway, I will guess that you guys are going to have a wonderful week, and you're going to join us all week. We're going to have lives with the governor. We're going to continue to do our videos. But ladies, join us over at Patreon, because this could literally mean the difference between life and something worse than death. Truly, because I could not imagine it. I truly could not imagine it. I don't know how mentally ill. I've heard these stories about guys in prisons transitioning to be women, and I'm like, how insane must you be? How mentally ill, how gone must you be to do that? But sometimes guys don't think about this. They don't think about this in the terms of the ladies in their lives. They think, well, I can protect, the one I love. I can protect my sisters, my daughters, my moms, grandmas, fiancés. Short term, yes. When there are police out there that are going to show up eventually, yes. But inside a FEMA camp? No. Not when not when they get you. See, guys could deal with this. It'd be miserable and it'd be horrible, but guys could deal with this. Ladies, don't even put yourself in a position to have to deal with it. Know when to fight. Know when to fight and know when to run. Know when to pack up and head out. That's what we're going to be talking about. So I'll leave it there. God bless. Have a great week. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.